Hi, and welcome to the Boston Beat. I'm Lenny Scolletta, and we have here today local musician Scott Damgaard, who just released a new CD, Hiding Out on Titan.
Hello. Thanks for having me here. Yeah, this is a song from the new album. It's called Nobody Understands Nothing No More. Everyone's talking and speaking their minds, spouting opinion on whatever they find. No thinking, just saying what's been said before. Now nobody understands nothing no more. Commentators, pundits, and big talking heads tear each other down no matter what's said. Giving answers upon answers, there ain't no answer for. Now nobody understands nothing no more. Nobody understands nothing no more. Flat screen TVs hang on everyone's walls, showing pictures, predictions of the great fall. They get you so worried, but what for? Now nobody understands nothing no more. Nobody understands nothing no more. Preying on fears, shifting the blame. Some people are playing a dangerous game. It don't matter who loses as long as they score. Now nobody understands nothing no more. Secret made deals and partisan acts. They call it fake news and alternative facts. Committing the truth to the cutting room floor. Now nobody understands nothing no more. Nobody understands nothing no more. Everyone's trying to act like they're right. It seems like there's no compromising in sight. We need to remember the things we're all for. When nobody understands nothing no more. For takers and rakers and prophets of doom. Nobody understands nothing no more. Try to scare you and dare you and rip you in two. Till nobody understands nothing no more. And they'll leave you with nothing and nothing to do. Nobody understands nothing no more. Now nobody understands nothing no more. No, nobody understands nothing no more.
Fitting song for a fitting times.
Sign of the times, right?
Exactly. So that was called
It's called Nobody Understands Nothing No More.
off the new CD, Hiding Out in Titan.
Hiding Out on Titan.
So how did that title come about?
I was
basically, I started writing that song in like September of 2016 during the election period. I just before I finished the album, I did an edit to sort of get it up to current times. There's some things in there that are current, but there was so much going on during that election campaign of just misinformation, people just saying things that it was like crazy. And so I was like, man, I just said it at one point. I said, man, nobody understands nothing no more. And I just kind of like the way it, sometimes when you have words that just roll off the tongue nice, I'm like, oh, that'll work good in a song. And I was actually on a flight from, I was out in Santa Fe, and I was coming back to Boston. And so I had a long flight, and I just sat there with my phone, and I just wrote, verse after verse after verse after verse. And pretty much, most of it's intact, but I did some editing and rewrote a couple lines, but I was thinking when I wrote it, like, oh, by the time, because it took me a while to finish the album, and I thought, by the time I finish the album, this song's not going to even mean anything anymore. Boy,
I think it needs more.
Yeah.
It's scary.
Yeah.
So I guess we're going to go back in time a bit to because
Okay.
you've been here locally for a long time.
In Boston, yeah.
Yeah, but you didn't come from Boston.
No, I wasn't born here. I was born in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and kind of moved around a bit in Milwaukee. Lived in Milwaukee, then Oak Creek and Greenfield, and then Cudahy, and went to UW Whitewater for college. And so that was my upbringing there.
What started you to want to play guitar?
Well, what's interesting is it wasn't even my idea to get the guitar in the first place. I hadn't even thought of it. I had been big into music, especially into the Beatles, and so I was doing some record collecting already, and that was one of my biggest pastimes was playing my stereo. And then I had a friend. I went over to his house one day, and he had a bass guitar. And he pulled it out of the case and he showed me how to fret it. And he said, you should get a guitar. I know a drummer and we can form a band. And the light bulb went off in my head like, wow, that's a great idea. And I had a paper route. I had been saving some money from my paper route. And I hadn't even thought of what I was going to spend it on other than records. And I went out and bought a guitar. And, just kind of got into it, and once I started playing, I played every day. Just kept, it's so funny to me that it wasn't my idea to get a guitar.
So, what were some of the first records that you bought? Like, what?
The first album I bought was Elton John's Greatest Hits.
Okay.
I used to go to this used record store, and they had a bin where you could get records for like $2, and I got that one. That was my first one. So like Honky Cat, I played that record quite a bit. And then I got into the Beatles pretty quick. That was like my next album was the Beatles. What happened was I was still in junior high kind of thing, and I had a choir class. And one day our choir teacher was out sick. And so we had a substitute teacher who didn't know anything about teaching singing. So he just told us to have a study hall. And apparently he was busy with something in his own classroom. And he said, I got to go get something out of my classroom. I'll be right back. Don't anybody make a sound or move or do anything. And sure enough, as soon as he walked out the door, my friend Scott Damgaard jumped out of his chair and ran into the corner. There's a record player and some albums that never got touched because we were always singing in choir class. And he rifled through there and he pulled out an album, queued it up, and it was the Blue Album, the Beatles' Greatest Hits 67 to 70. and he queued up Revolution, not the White Album version, but the electric, the single version.
Oh, wicked.
And it starts with that. You say you want a rebel. And I had never heard the song before. I was a teenager.
Wow.
And I'm like, this is great. What is this? So that night I rode my bike to Kmart and I bought that album and I listened to that album. Oh, that was that, put Elton John away. I listen to the Beatles now, And it's funny because I listened to that album for about a month. And then I, when I bought it, I saw there was a Red album too, the 62 to 66, the early years. And so I thought, you know what? I think I'll go get that one too. Check it out. And of course I liked it, but I remember thinking, but it's not as good as the 67 to 70s. I think most people, when they listen to the Beatles, come at it from the early Beatles first.
Right. And
or maybe the whole catalog all at once or something. And I was just the late years,
wow.
The studio years, the stuff they didn't play live. And I don't know, I think if you listen to my music, you'll hear that, like, especially the last few albums, I've kind of taken that approach of, what can we do? How can we make the sound best in the studio?
Right.
Some of my earlier albums, I was more concerned about, I want to record it exactly like I play it live, so that when you come to hear the concert, it's exactly like the recording. But the more I thought about like how the Beatles did their later year studio stuff, I thought, man, so some of my recent albums, like they'll have different players on the different songs. So, Jim Fitting played harmonica on one song, and Sax Gordon played some saxophone on a song, a couple songs, that kind of thing, where I'd be like, what's the best way to produce this song? This to tell this story, get these characters and make it, if it's a dance song or if it's a, serious listening song, what have you. The Beatles approach in the studio, weren't they lucky though? They were able to go in the studio every day and just work
for hours and hours.
I basically, when I record, I get like 4 hours, like once a week at the most. I'll miss a week here and there, but like I can afford like 4 hours. To put in a 40-hour week for me takes like 10 weeks.
Right.
You know what I mean? That's why it's like
the difference.
Yeah. So, it took me over 2 years to record my new album. If you put it all together, I could have done it in 5 weeks. I still have that album too.
Oh, really? Yeah. The actual, wow. So after the Beatles, who else were you listening to?
Well, to be honest, once I got into the Beatles, I just got immersed in it. And I had a friend whose brother had like every Beatle album. And I kind of, the way some people collect coins or stamps or something, I got into collecting all the Beatle albums. And I was on a hunt to find every original Beatle album that on the original label.
Ah, wow.
Yeah.
That was difficult. Even then.
And I tell you, when I was 15, and I had a collection of Beatles t-shirts, and I wore a Beatles t-shirt to school every day. There was 2 times where I had to wear a suit to school because I was on the cross country team. But other than that, my sophomore year in high school, I remember I wore a Beatles t-shirt every day. But eventually, I remember the Fleetwood Mac Rumors album came out. And that was the first album that sort of got me out of my Beatles bubble that I was locked in. And then from there, I started opening up my mind a bit. I had a friend of mine who was into Bruce Springsteen. I didn't even know who he was.
Yeah.
We were at his house and he played Bruce Springsteen's first album, Greetings from Asbury Park, New Jersey. And I remember thinking that it was kind of a raw production, especially compared to what I'm used to from the Beatles. But Bruce Springsteen came to Milwaukee And my other friend Joe and I, we got tickets. We ended up getting like 11th row of tickets the day of the show. This was 1978, and there was not too many Springsteen fans in Milwaukee yet. So he only sold like a third of the arena. And, you know, only going by our friend Dave's, you know, playing the record for us. We just took a chance and went down there. I remember it was like a week after my 16th birthday. I just got my driver's license, and my parents wouldn't let me take the car. Like, you're not driving to a concert, having your license for 1 week. I don't blame them, but we just rode our bikes, you know. Back then, when you were 15, you always rode your bike anywhere anyway. So we rode our bikes to the arena, and I saw Bruce, and it really blew my mind. He was on fire, man, just rocking, and we snuck backstage after the show and we met him too.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Oh man! Wow. Was he nice?
Super nice. Here's the thing. Okay, backstage in the arena, they basically just kind of cordoned off the concourse there.
Yeah.
And then there was a door that went to the locker room, like where the basketball players would go, and that's where the band was in there. And there was a guy that was sitting in the seats behind us who had a backstage pass, a big, tall guy. And so we got chatting with him. And he says, "You want to meet Bruce?" And we're like, yeah. And he's like, "Okay, I'll take you in there." And so he got us in past security. And I fully expected, because I saw like boxes of pizzas go in there and stuff, and I fully expected to see, you know, everybody surrounding Bruce and talking to him and the whole, you know, that's what I was picturing in my mind, right?
Right.
But when you walked in that door, because it's a locker room, there's a wall so that you don't immediately open it up and see people in it and, you know, changing clothes or whatever, you know? And Bruce was standing right there by himself. He had nobody else in the band with him or anything. Those guys, who knows what they were doing on the other side of the wall? But he had just put on this like 4-hour concert where he just gave it his all. And after the show, he stood at that door and greeted everyone that came backstage to see him. That left a huge impression on me. You know, and so then I got into Bruce Springsteen, and I even found an old article from when he had played Milwaukee the time before that. He had played a small theater. And that story said that he stood at the front door and shook everyone's hand that came in as they were coming into the concert.
Whoa.
Yeah. You know, funny story, when me and Joe met him, there was while we were kind of hanging out in that concourse area of the backstage, Joe noticed that there was a broken seat cushion from one of the seats inside the arena, and it had a big split down the, you know, the leather seat cushion, or fake leather, whatever it is.
Right.
And Joe picked it up, and he's like, "I'm gonna have to sign this." And so we get back there, and Joe hands him this to sign, right? And Bruce says, "Do they know you're taking this?" And Joe goes, "Oh yeah."
Sure.
And he signs Bruce Springsteen on that seat cover, right? And my friend Joe says, Can you sign that to Joe Wazeeka?" And he says, "Okay." And he starts to write, and he goes, "How do you spell that?" And he says, "Joe." He said, the look on Bruce Springsteen's face, man, he just stopped and just stared at Joe. He just stared at him. And Joe goes, "Wazeeka." And he writes Wazeeka, and he hands it back. And later when we looked at it, we saw he had written 2, and then he had started the letter J, and he just stopped. He never finished the OE.
Maybe he didn't know how to spell it.
Oh man, that look.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, so needless to say, I kind of became a Bruce Springsteen fan, you know.
Yeah.
So I'd say, you know, John Lennon and the Beatles were my biggest influence, and then Springsteen.
Right.
That Bruce Springsteen, you know, rock and roll. I mean that, and I got into Bruce when that was his Darkness on the Edge of Town album.
Oh yes. Yeah.
That was his 4th album, yeah. And then The River came out after that. And when he came back for the River tour, he set a record at the Milwaukee Arena. He sold that out in 5 minutes, which going from selling a third of the arena to setting a record.
Setting a record, yeah.
Yeah.
So at that time, you were starting to be in bands, or were you in?
Yeah, so like I mentioned how about my friend, told me to get a guitar. He had a bass and he had a friend, and we didn't really put a band together. We did get together, but I didn't know how to play well enough. But Joe Azika had a group of guys he was playing with Bob Donnelly on drums and Tom Weir on bass. And I started hanging out with those guys, and we bought a little reel-to-reel tape deck, and I remember the first couple songs we learned were "Smile Away" by Paul McCartney.
McCartney, that's cool.
It's just basically that one chord form and just move it up and down. It was pretty easy to play, and "Satisfaction," which is basically 3 chords by the Rolling Stones. Remember, there's a tape with us playing those songs. But we basically just rehearsed in the basement. We never played any gigs or anything. And then, so most of my time I was just playing my guitar in my bedroom, sitting on the edge of my bed, learning Beatles songs. And I did write some songs. All those songs are gone though. I had them in a notebook. My mom threw it away. when I went off to college, she just cleaned my room and
That's what they do.
But I remember that summer before I went to college, there was some friends that I had that they got hired to play a backyard party for someone who was, I think they're joining the Peace Corps or something. They were going to Africa, and they wanted to play all Beatles songs, and they needed someone who could play rhythm guitar and sing backup vocals. So that was my first official gig, was playing a backyard party.
Oh, that's cool.
And there was, 2 other guys that did the John and Paul. And whichever guy played guitar was actually the George too, because he played the lead guitar. And I sang, they gave me one song to sing. I did Chains.
Oh,
and that one, it's,
yeah.
Carole King wrote that, but
Oh, that's right.
George sang it
On the introducing.
the
Yeah.
very first album. So that was my debut. So it was more like when I got into college that I actually started playing. I met a guy in college who was also a Beatles fan, and we started playing open mics together. And but then he got into a band, and I was kind of on my own. And for a while, I didn't play on stage because, I was like, well, I don't have the guy to do it with, right? But I was like, well, I got to do it myself. And that first time playing by myself was so nerve-wracking. I was so nervous. But I got up and I played my 3 songs, and everything went perfect. And I got done, and I felt, very like that's when I really got the bug. And from that point forward, I didn't have to depend on anybody else. I could just take my guitar by myself and go play. And that's the lesson I learned from that show. And so over the years, I've played with, various bands, we've played together.
Yes.
And, but I've always been able to maintain, this like solo acoustic kind of, thing. It's, don't have to, worry if the bass player's sick or if, the drummer's wife had a baby and now they can't,
Right, yeah.
Can't play anymore. It's like, always been able to just forge ahead no matter what. That early experience,
Was that the Ted Mack show, or was that something?
I did the Ted Mack show with that guy that I'm talking about that I met in college.
Yeah.
We were doing the Beatles stuff together. Yeah. We auditioned. There was a Ted Mack talent show, and it was performed at the Dane County Coliseum in Madison, Wisconsin. So, I had seen Bruce Springsteen at the Dane County Coliseum, Neil Young. I saw John Mellencamp there, and then here I was on that stage. So, they. I remember there was 2 days of auditions, 12 hours. I don't know how many acts they auditioned, but they only picked 12 or 15 or something like that, and we made the cut. So we got to do one song. We did "Nowhere Man."
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
We wore our suits and our ties.
Yeah. What was the response?
It was great. It was great. And the arena was full of people. I mean, it wasn't a sold out show, but all the floor seats and all the loge seats were taken. There was nobody sitting up in the balcony. But
Wow.
so one of my first shows was in front of thousands of people. And you know what? I was actually, I realized I was more comfortable with like more people than I was if I played in a room in front of like 3 or 4 people.
Wow.
Yeah, it made me more nervous to have to look someone in the eye. And
Right.
with what I learned with the crowd was, you know, if I'm looking at somebody and they don't seem to be getting into it, I just scan the audience until I see somebody who's singing, you know, yeah. And,
Right.
and I look at that person and I go, you know, find another one. And it was, that's when I realized that I could play, you know, big shows and not be chicken, you know. I'm like, no, I got this.
Man, that's
It's the small shows that I get chicken.
me too.
Yeah, you know how it is.
So from there, well, at some point you went on to get a job as tour manager for the Muppets.
That's right. That's right. Sesame Street, the Muppets. Yeah. How that happened was, you know, I was playing music, dreaming of being a, you know, rock star. But, you know, my parents kept telling me, you know, you need to get a college degree and have something to fall back on. And, I took their advice serious, you know, so I went to college. But I thought, you know, I want to get into the music business then. I'll like be a promoter, or I'll, you know, be a manager or something. I'll work for, you know, one of my favorite bands and you know, maybe even help a band that's not famous get famous or something. And so I met the promoter who worked for the Dane County Coliseum, the in-house promoter. And he recommended, he said, if you want to go work for the rock bands, it's better to start with these family shows, because the rock bands have bigger productions and they'll have like 7 people working on the show, whereas there's only like 2 working on the show for the family shows.
Ah.
So he said, you know, try to hook up with Disney on Ice or the Sesame Street, you know, and the Sesame Street Muppets production company, like the TV show is based out of New York, but the touring company is based out of Minneapolis. And that's the Midwest, right where I was. So I just drove, I contacted them and they invited me to come in for an interview. I remember they said, we don't have anything available right now, but we'll keep your name. And a few months later, I got a call. They said, are you still interested? And I said, yeah, absolutely. So I at first was on a Sesame Street show, and then they transferred me to a Muppet show. And but it was a great experience because I got to tour the whole United States and all the backs. You know, I did so much stuff. I was, you know, doing the payroll, and we had the stagehands union and actors union, and then the regular, you know, like management, and then I was doing auditing the box office. So I saw everything there is to do about that, you know, and I'd work with every arena's like ticket takers and ushers and tell them what our policy was.
Right.
Plus, I was doing a lot of public relations stuff with these Muppets. I would take Kermit the Frog and go to a hospital and go to the intensive care unit where the children were, and bring Kermit in and cheer up these kids who were having a rough time, or in the cancer units or whatever. And did a lot of that. And it was a really good experience, you know. I was booking the transportation, the hotels, so I had a, you know, very intensified, you know, learning about everything that has to happen that's not the making the music.
Right.
And it's all good to know, you know. In fact, we did our pre-production in Minneapolis at Prince's Paisley Park Studios for about 4 weeks. Yeah, he had Paisley Park Studios. It seems as though he's, you know, he changed it as he went along, but it was pretty new at the time. And it had 3 recording studios in there. It had his offices. It had a place where he had a woman who made all his clothes. You can see her in the office, you know.
Yeah.
And but there was also a room that was like for ballet, kind of a ballet room with mirrored walls and the railing, you know, that you would see in a ballet room. And then there was a room that was like a sound stage where there was a stage set up that was like what is it, an 80-foot stage or something that you play on in an arena.
Wow.
And it was set up, and that's what we built our set on, and built the backdrops and all the props, and up front there was like 10 rows of seats or something, maybe 20, I forget. And but that's where, like, when Prince did that movie Sign of the Times, he filmed that in Paris, but for the close-ups, he set up the whole stage in that sound stage.
Oh man.
And he recreated it and did all the close-ups there. And I'm sure a lot of his music videos and things were done there. I remember reading in Rolling Stone that he was in France at the time. So I was like kind of disappointed that I wasn't going to get to see him. But then one day I was walking down the hallway, and one of the recording studios had a door with a window on it about this big. And I just happened to look, and there was Prince in there with like 4 other guys standing in a circle having a little meeting. And I'm like, oh, he's here. And then for the next 4 days, I got to hear him rehearse. It was he set up in the ballet room.
Yeah.
And I had my office. It was funny. I had a desk, and here's my wall, and on either side of the wall was that ballet room.
Oh wow.
And so the first day of rehearsal, all he did was he had the song "Sign of the Times" out, right? And he was getting ready to go to perform it on the MTV Music Awards. And Prince records all the parts himself,
right?
So but to play live, he has to have a band. And apparently, he was mostly concerned about the song getting started right, because he played the intro right up until the scene comes in, and then he would stop and do it again. And he did this for like 2 hours.
Just the intro?
Just the intro, over and over. And I'm like, I'm loving it, right? I'm loving it. But part of me is like going, I just want to grab an old, hey, finish the song, play something else. Yeah, and then the next day he came in, and it was like music instrument practice day.
Yeah.
And it would just get he would get a groove going, and he would just call out different people in the band to take solos. And it wasn't a song, it was just grooves. And or he would call out like bass and drums on the 1, and then right on the 1 everybody would stop playing except the bass and the drums. And then after a while he would say, band on the 1, and everybody would come back in on the 1. And he would just calling out a lot of cues, and like to the horn section, like, horns, give me 11, and then they would hit this riff 11 times, which is a weird number, but they'd hit it,
Right.
And the third day, he did a whole concert from start to finish, and not just playing the songs, like when we rehearse songs, we just play the song and then we talk about it, and then we play the next song and talk about it.
Right.
His rehearsal involved, it was as if there was an audience. He was talking to an imaginary audience.
Yeah.
So he was rehearsing his banter too.
Oh, wow.
And then on the 4th day, when I came to work, I'd gotten to know one of his roadies, and I saw him loading equipment onto a U-Haul truck. And I'm like, what's going on? He said, well, Prince is going to play at this bar down the street tonight. So as soon as I got to work that night, I went right to that bar. There was only about 10 people in the bar when I got there, and I saw Prince's gear all up on the stage.
Oh, man.
And then I thought, well, let's see, I could take a seat right there in the front row, but the bar is right here and the stage is right there. I'm just going to take a bar seat, And I remember, I was like in my early 20s, and there was like most of the people in the bar were like in their 40s or something,
Right.
And this woman, she's like, "What are you doing in here, young one?" I'm like, "I'm here to see Prince." She's like, "Yeah, right." Prince, he's not playing here.
People didn't know.
I'm like, "You see that drum set? That's Prince's drum set. Sheila E's gonna be playing that drum set."
Oh man, so people in there didn't know he was just gonna show up and do the
Yeah.
the show?
Yeah. Apparently the word got out because right before the show started, all of a sudden there was a line up to get in.
Right.
And there was a cover charge. It was like $5 or something. But I didn't have to pay the cover. I was already in. I met his dad that night too.
Really?
Yeah, his dad was there. It was a great night. I remember even like, because I had heard the rehearsal, right?
Yeah.
And so after they played and then they left the stage and he didn't say anything like, we're taking a break, we'll be back. He just left the stage. And so a lot of people left thinking that was over. And I don't know what he was doing backstage, probably, critiquing everything,
Yeah.
And, but they were off stage for over an hour.
Yeah.
It was a long break, but I stayed put because I'm like, I heard this yesterday. He's coming back.
Wow.
And sure enough, he came back and
wow.
you know that movie Sign of the Times? There was a concert movie?
Yeah, yeah.
That's the show.
He did that there.
Yeah, because then like, a few months later, I went to the theater and I saw the same concert that I heard through the wall, and then I saw in a bar,
Man.
then I saw it
Whoa.
on the big screen. That guy worked hard, man.
Oh, was it?
He was there for hours rehearsing. It really instilled in me like what the difference between amateur bands and professional bands. Of course, he had the luxury of
Right.
doing that. We all have to have jobs, right?
Unfortunately. Yes, we do. So how long did the Muppets last?
Well, I did one full tour,
Okay.
basically. 11 months is what it was. There was a 4-week period when one show ends and the next one starts. I'll tell you a funny story. So I got off the tour and they told me, 4 weeks we'll start the next one. So see you in 4 weeks. And I had a friend that had a house in Minneapolis. So I just was staying at my friend's house. And I wanted to play guitar. So downtown Minneapolis has this a street where it's just like a walking. The only cars that can go up and down the street are like police cars and ambulances and fire trucks and buses, I think. But otherwise, it's a pretty quiet street for a downtown street, and a lot of street musicians go there to play. So I went down there to play, and one of the accountants from the office of the Sesame Street Muppet Show, right? She sees me playing, and she was like, "So Scott, I didn't know you played guitar and sang. You're really good." And she stayed for like 15 minutes, and then she had to get back to work. So back to work, and I don't know. You know how things, when you tell someone something and then they tell the next person and they tell the next person,
Yeah.
and by the time it gets to somewhere else, the whole story's changed.
Right.
So it went from, hey, I saw Scott playing on Nicollet Mall, and he's really good. He's playing guitar out there. To by the time I got to the president of the company, it was, Scott is protesting. He's not making enough money, and he's outside the front doors of the company begging for money with his guitar case open. And, this is what ended up going through the office, and the president was so mad that I got let go.
Oh, man.
Yeah, I know. I got home and the phone rang. I picked it up. I'm like, "Were you just playing guitar?" I'm like, "Yeah." "I'm supposed to tell you you're let go."
Oh, whoa.
Well, you know what? It ended up being a good thing. It was a shock to my system because I had never been let go from a job before. But I had just had a whole year of experience of, what I wanted to learn. And one of the things that I realized was I didn't want to be working behind the scenes. I wanted to be playing music. And while I was on the road, we came through Boston and we went through all the major cities. And every place I went, I picked up like the local music magazines, tuned into the radio station, what's going on in the city. And Boston had, a great rock station, WBCN, and
Yeah.
I was really impressed with WFNX playing
Sure.
modern music,
Yeah.
and the noise and the metronome and the Boston Phoenix. there was such a great scene happening here. And plus, I mean, I'd grown up loving, you know, the Cars. I saw them in concert, you know, the Boston, I'd seen them, you know,
Right.
Jay Gow's band and Aerosmith, I'd seen them in concert, you know, like,
Yeah.
there was just something about Boston that some really good rock bands came out of there. And I had thought about New York, I thought about Chicago, I thought about Nashville, I even thought about Dallas. Dallas had a good music scene. But I thought Boston, you know, I'm going to give Boston a shot. So that actually, you know, who knows where I'd be? I might still be, you know, working for
Yeah.
Sesame Street or something.
Right.
But instead, I followed my musical path, you know, and you know.
So how long were you here until you joined your first band? Was the Frizbees your first?
Yeah, it was pretty quick. I you know, though, I think it was the Phoenix that had that. Might have been the Metronome, but you know, there was the looking for, you know, the band needs guitar player. I saw the ad and went and auditioned, and I got into the band. It was with Norm LeBlanc and John
Allen.
John Allen. In fact, they weren't called the Buzzsaw Frizbees. I feel like I helped come up with that name because I was dating this girl at the time. You maybe remember Michelle Delfino.
Yes. Yeah.
She had a great sense of humor, and she had this cartoon that was, I think it was called like Sports That Never Caught On, and it was just humorous, right? And one of them was Buzzsaw Frizbees, and there was a guy like trying to get the frisbee, and his fingers getting cut off, right?
Why wouldn't that catch on?
I know. And so she, you know, I think she suggested, how about Buzzsaw Frizbees for the name of the band? Because it was kind of a punk underground rock band.
Right, yeah.
Good punk underground rock name, Buzzsaw Frizbees. And so I brought it up to the guys, and they loved it, and that became the name of the band was Buzzsaw Frizbees. And I mean, we went through a few drummers. I remember you were a drummer.
Yes. Yeah.
But before that, there was a couple other guys, and I remember we even auditioned Mikey D. You know, Mikey D from WMFO fame.
Mikey D played on drums.
Yeah,
That's right.
yeah.
That's totally. Yeah.
We didn't take him. I don't remember why, but you know.
Yeah, but a great guy. Though.
Great guy.
Great guy. Yeah.
But yeah, Buzzsaw Frizbees. That was my first step into an all original music band.
Right.
You know, wasn't playing Beatles or anything. You know. I had, I think, 2 songs. I know one was called "Say Your Goodbyes."
Yeah.
And another one called "All Right Tonight." But for the most part, John and Norm were the main songwriters, singers of the band.
The only reason why I really joined the Frizbees is because I liked your songs. I thought your 2 songs were like the best, and I'm thinking, well, if they do more your songs, the band's really going to be, you know, cool. You know,
Yeah.
And that didn't come to pass.
Well, I wasn't really prolific at the time either. And, you know, I remember too, like sitting down to write a song, and they were, I liked Norm's and John's songs a lot.
Yeah.
They were, you know, they were alternative rock kind of, you know, they
Right.
weren't trying to be pop songwriters.
Right.
And so I liked what they were doing, but it wasn't the way I wrote.
Right.
I was more of like, you know, with my Beatles and Bruce Springsteen influence.
Yeah.
You know, "Say Your Goodbyes" to me is kind of almost like a Ticket to Ride groove. And I remember sitting down writing, coming up with stuff, and then I'd be like, those guys will never play this, and crumpling it up and throwing it away. So it actually was kind of stifling
Right.
my creativity being in the band in that sense.
We're gonna have Scott sing one now. It's called "All Right Tonight." Start off, Scott. I was a kid.
I went to see him at the Channel, and you know what really kind of blew my mind was seeing the guy that replaced me playing my guitar parts note for note. I was like, wow, I came up with that part, and they kept it. That's cool. was one of the bands that I got influenced by. Not that particular album at first, but I remember I had a chance to go see a concert at the Milwaukee County Stadium, and I didn't go. My sister went, and it was Pink Floyd doing the Animals tour. And so that was my first kind of being aware of who Pink Floyd was the Animals tour. My sister coming home and talking about the big flying pig and all this. And so at that point, I started paying attention to Pink Floyd more. And I remember when The Wall came out in that movie, that was huge. And then, of course, listening to Dark Side and all that. But later, I got tuned into the Syd Barrett side of Pink Floyd. And I got that first album. And I read a book about Syd. I just got really kind of into what Syd was doing. Got his solo albums that he did after Pink Floyd. I have a song called Galaxies Away. And it's just like one chord, with the melody varying and stuff. And I wrote that during my Syd Barrett period when I was really... So that album, I think, it's different from the stuff that Roger Waters wrote. Roger Waters only wrote one song on their first album, and it's kind of an instrumental. But the other songs were more Syd Barrett, and it's kind of more rock. It's not as like most Pink Floyd songs kind of move at a slow glacier pace, Hello, 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 and but that has loose of the same cyan cat.
Yeah. Psychedelic year. And,
so I would say, like at that point, my major influences were kind of equally Bruce Springsteen and John Lennon, the Beatles, and Syd Barrett. Around that time, I was also sort of getting into Jerry Garcia and the Grateful Dead. So the Syd Barrett and the Jerry Garcia thing, the psychedelic rock, were kind of hand in hand for me.
So which song off the Floyd album did you...
The first song on the first album is Astronomy Domini.
Okay.
If you don't have it, I recommend it. Yeah. Well, there are some similarities in this current time of music too. You have a lot of single-oriented market now. Single songs, not album development or band development. Just get the hits out, which it was like in the 50s and into the 60s. But the Beatles and the Pink Floyds, they changed all that. With Buddy Holly writing songs, the Beatles picked up on that, and then so from like the mid 60s up until the recent future, you had to write your own songs, or no one thought you were legitimate. They thought you had no credibility. But now, I just looked at the list last night of who won all the Grammys, and every song that was nominated for like Song of the Year or Best Song had like 4 or 5 songwriters on it. And sometimes the singer wasn't one of them.
Right. That blows my mind. And all those songs are so bad. If 5 people write those bad songs.
Yeah, last year with Bruno Mars had like 8 people on stage with him because they were all the songwriters.
And not one of them can write a melody,
It's interesting.
in my opinion.
You know?
But isn't that something?
Yeah.
So you went to Europe.
Yeah. Well, I'd been living in Boston, and I had started recording my first album. You were the one that introduced me to John Crivet,
Yeah.
and he had this little studio called the Sound Market, which he basically had set up in his bedroom. He had a spare bedroom that he had a studio in, and he could, like what you told me about John, which made me go to him, was I didn't have a band at the time, and John could do everything. He could do bass, guitars, keyboards, drums, anything you needed that you couldn't do, he could do. And between the two of us, we could record a whole song. The only problem with John was he couldn't do live drums, and so the drums were all done with he had like a Oasis drum pad thing where you hit the button, kick, snare, kick, snare,
Yeah.
And I think John did great parts for my song. The drum parts were great, but the module, the technology of the module, I thought like the hi-hat sounded kind of, really fake and whatever, but the parts were awesome. And I was like halfway through recording that album, and at the time I was dating this girl who was from Moscow, and she was going back to Moscow for 3-4 months, and she was able to get me an invitation visa, which allowed me to go there for 3 months. So I went there, and it was a very interesting time because it was right after the Soviet Union had dismantled, and I think they took the Soviet Union flag off of the Kremlin on January 1st, and I got there January 11th. So it was a very interesting time to be there culturally. But I met a band there. I recorded 3 songs in a studio that made it on my first album.
Okay.
And after that visa ran out, then I went to my ticket home went through Germany, and I just didn't continue back to the United States. And I got off the plane and I just went into Cologne, Germany, and then I just started backpacking around Europe. I had my guitar with me, and I was doing some street performing, and that was a good experience too.
So how long did that?
I stayed for another 5.5 weeks or something, month and a half. When I came home, then finished up that first album, and I put my first band together that was just basically doing my music.
Right.
And you were in it.
Yeah.
And John Crivet was in it.
Yeah.
We also had Rich Mursky and Tom Abbott. And Mary Kunjian and Robin Collette.
Yeah.
And we had Misha Tsiganov playing keyboards.
Yes.
The great jazz keyboardist Misha Tsiganov. He's gone on to some great success. I don't know if you followed him, but he's released many albums.
Yeah.
Does tours. He's very successful.
Wow. He was amazing. That band was amazing.
That was really a good band.
That was a really good,
I was watching a video that we have from when we played at a place in Harvard Square that was called the Black Rose.
Yes. Yeah.
And I was watching it. I think I'm going to post a clip from that for like Throwback Thursday or something like that. And it's funny seeing myself so young. We're all so young. And,
yeah.
but to be honest, I was expecting to see, amateur hour kind of thing, and it was really together. Really good. I was like, man, we were onto something.
Yes. Mary and Robin, those voices. Right? Oh my God.
Beautiful.
Unbelievable.
And not just Mary and Robin, but John and Tom and Richard also sang. So we'd have,
a lot of
6 people singing at the same time. It sounded great.
Yep.
Great vocal group.
The songwriting between them all.
Yeah, because I would do my songs, but when you do a show with 7 people in the band, and there's a $5 cover, and the first $100 goes to the sound man, and there's 2 other bands on the bill, and by the time you split it all up, everyone's going home with maybe $20.
Right.
And so one of the ways that I thought was rewarding for everybody else in the band was to I'd do a couple, and then John would sing one, and then I'd do a couple, and then Richard would sing one. I'd do a couple, and then Robin would sing one.
Right.
So everyone kind of got to throw in their songs. Kind of reminded me of Fleetwood Mac. You know?
Yeah. Right. Yeah. The coolest thing I remember is when we did. We went out in the street in downtown Crossing, and I think I have a video of that.
Really?
Somewhere.
Oh, I need a copy of that.
I never made more money at any other gig than we did there. We're right in the middle of downtown Crossing in front of Filene's, I think, wherever it was. People were standing there like the whole time we were there. We were getting the applause and clapping.
Oh, yeah.
That was just so wicked cool.
You know, a lot of people look down on street performing, but I tell you what, I've done a lot of it, and I actually miss it. I recently bought a battery-powered amplifier because I want to do some more. You know, when I play in the clubs, it seems like, you know, whoever comes out to the club that night, that's my audience. That's who I,
right.
You know, that's my exposure for the night. When you play on the street, you have thousands of people walking past you. And granted, most people just keep walking past you. But every now and then you catch someone's ear and they stop and they listen. And maybe they got to be somewhere. But if you have like a flyer for your show sitting there, or an album for sale, they might buy an album, but most people, if they take a flyer, then they end up at your show.
Right.
And so I think I want to do some more street performing just so I can reach out to more people. I miss that. That
was a blast.
It really was.
It just really was. You know, and I kind of wish we had done more of that. But
we played a lot at the Tam O'Shanter in Brookline.
Yeah, yeah.
And what else? We played the Rat. We played both downstairs and we played upstairs in the balcony.
Oh man, yeah, yeah.
Right. And I don't know. I remember I played at the Kendall Cafe for a while, but I don't think you were at the Kendall Cafe. That was more of an acoustic thing.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That came some time after.
I mean, the only reason it really dissolved probably was because of the fact that we were only getting $20 each. You couldn't live on it. It was hard to keep it together. And at one point, I moved out to San Francisco, and that made it even harder to keep it together. But I kept coming back. I thought I was going to do the same thing in San Francisco that I did in Boston, but I just didn't. I didn't know anybody out there, and nobody knew me, and it was pretty difficult making inroads. And I had already done all this work in Boston, so I decided to move back here, and I'm really glad I did because, at first I felt like, oh, what am I trapped here now? Because I like being, being able to move about. But within a month, I was like so happy to be here because I've been here ever since. A lot of
the Dreams of Children album.
Yeah, if you want to play a song off of that one, I would recommend the song that you played drums on, the Son of a Flim Flam.
Courageous or confused, astounding or abused, it's only life when you're the son of the Flim Flam Man. Born in the spring of 1966, Junior had it tough from the very first day. It was before the age of 6 when they took his father away. Told he went into the military, but really he'd been locked away. 3 to 5 for embezzlement, not working for the War Department. Courageous or confused, astounding or abused, it's only life when you're the son of the Flim Flam Man. Junior found out at 16 years he had a half-sister older by 4 years. she was alive. The secret let out that father tried to hide. Junior joined the army one April day to spite the father he loved but did not trust. And from that day forward, he just seemed like the little boy lost. Courageous or confused, astounding or abused, it's only life when you're the son of the flim flam man.
Studio. But by the time I was done with those 12 songs, I was kind of embarrassed with the drum machine. And so I never released that second album, not at that time. And then I met a German drummer named Jürgen Wachnick. And Jürgen saw me playing in a club, and he was like, "Hey, I got a studio at home. You want to come over and record a couple songs?" And I said, "Yeah." And so I did, and it went well. And he said, "Why don't we do a whole album?" And so, but he wanted to record with his guys, the band that he played with. And I said, "Okay, sounds good." And we made this album. But it was more metal sounding than what I do for my sound. I'm not really a metal guy. I'm rock, but I'm, like the Beatles would have Mother Nature, Son, and Helter Skelter on the same album.
Right.
That's kind of where I'm at. But the Helter Skelter it's just one song,
Right, it's not the whole
So,
album.
I would have, something like All Right Tonight on my album, but I didn't, it was just the one song, I like the variety, the eclectic sounds. I did have that album out for a while.
Without knowing where you've been, I opened my door and let you in. You came to me, beautiful and free. You gave me love right from the start, showed me how to see with my heart. You came to me, beautiful and free. My arms are racing like a runaway train.
Was able to go back and replace the drums on that second album with Ken Hickey playing real drums. I transferred the original reel-to-reel tapes to the digital format, and then we just muted the drum machine track, and Ken played real drums to it. Then we remixed it and mastered it with all the original vocals and the guitars and bass and keyboards. We replaced the drums with real drums. And, maybe that's cheating or something, but honestly, I never would have released it with a drum machine. I couldn't do it. So now that album is out. You can and I called it Scott Damgaard's second album, even though I released it probably fourth or fifth or something.
Right.
I called it that so that you knew this was the second album that I made.
Downtown, red lips and hair that's golden brown, eyes that shine like candlelight. Wish I might be trying to tell you what's on my mind. I've watched you now for too much time. Your lovely hair flows like the sea. Will you come to carry me to yesterday? Yesterday the sun was shining on me, shining like a great big yellow monkey, playing games with my imagination. Oh no, tell me, what have I done? Flowers grown in my garden.
WayOutz.
Which is actually celebrating 20 years of CD.
Yeah,
that we recorded back in 98, 99.
99, yeah. Maybe we started in 98, but we released it in 99.
Yeah,
And now it's 2019. That's 20 years ago.
20 years.
Yeah.
Who'd have thunk?
Remember you calling me up one day and saying, hey, we're putting this band back together called the WayOutz. And the whole premise of it was we just want to get together in the rehearsal room on Monday nights and just jam. We don't want to book shows. We don't want to, play gigs. We just want to jam. And nobody's telling nobody what to do. We're just going to play. And whatever you throw into the soup comes of it. I think that's the way Richard described it to me.
Ah, okay.
And I was all about it. Because I had just made, an album where we were paying attention to every little part. And, you do this, you do that. And this WayOutz was more like, hey, this is 4 people who, what can I do to make the song better kind of thing.
Right.
And, but I think when I gave you guys the copies of my album, Memories of the Future, everyone kind of got like, oh, this is so cool. We should make an album. And we ended up trading in our Monday night rehearsal room for a Monday night recording studio.
Ah, that's right.
And it took us a good 16 weeks to make that album. By the time we got done, somebody had taken over our Monday night rehearsal space. And so we never got back to the room. We tried booking some gigs, but then,
Right.
different things were going on with, in Richard's life. And
We released the CD and the band was pretty much breaking up around then, I think.
yeah, it was. It's like sometimes I look back and go, man, if we just stayed in that room, we'd,
Right.
we'd have lasted a lot longer.
Right, that's right.
I'm glad.
Really cool. I mean,
Hey,
yeah.
if we just stayed in the room, we wouldn't have anything to show for it except
Right.
memories.
Yeah.
Now we have
Memories of the future.
17 songs recorded.
Right, yeah, and it's kick ass.
Yeah.
And we're doing a reunion show, March 9th at the Tavern at the End of the Universe.
The end of the world. Tavern at the end of the world. Perfect place for the WayOutz to be, right?
Right at the end.
Yeah, it's a Saturday night.
Yep,
It's
Saturday
gonna be
night.
fun.
Yeah. And we got a song that Scott wrote from the CD called Memories of the Future, one of my favorite songs off the disc.
My brother David actually wrote the lyric, and I wrote the music, the melody, and the chords.
Yeah, great tune.
Mm-hmm.
And here it is.
Memories I have seen so far away through space and time. What answers will be given to the questions in my mind? I remember the future, I have forgotten the past. The present is hard to come by when the moment doesn't last. Memories I have seen so far away, given space and time, offering up answers to the questions in my mind, in my mind, in my mind. If we make it through these fragile days, together we'll take our stand. I'll rise up towards the sky, clasped hand in hand.
we're getting together to play these songs again. This is gonna be fun. But then when I released that album, Memories of the Future, that it's funny, Memories of the Future doesn't have the song Memories of the Future on it. So we decided to put it on the WayOutz album.
Right.
And I think when I came up with that album, everybody was like, "Oh, we should make an album." So we traded in our Monday night rehearsals for Monday night recording sessions.
Yeah.
And we got a good album out of it.
Yes, it's. I think it's pretty amazing.
Kissy Pig Studios in Alston was a great studio.
Yeah. And the guy that helped us produce it,
Home Hennessy.
Yeah, Hennessy was great. Had a great year, and he really
good. They had a lot of instruments there that they let us use. I got to play a Black Beauty Les Paul that was previously owned by the Edge from U2. Yeah, I guess it was Kerm's, the guy that owned the studio.
Yeah.
He was on tour in Ireland, and someone broke into the van and stole all of the band gear. And so the promoter was like, "Okay, you guys, you're gonna need some gear, you know." And he's like, "Okay, I know a guy who's got a bunch of guitars. Maybe he'll let you use one, you know." And so he said they get to this house and they knock on the door and the Edge answers the door. He had no idea that was who it was gonna be. And they took him in this room, and there was just guitars all over the place. And he looks around and he goes, "What, that one?" And he just gave it to him. He didn't sell it to him. He just gave it to him. And it ended up in my hands. It's on that album. I remember it because I always saw pictures of Jimmy Page playing Les Paul, and he's standing like a rock star with his hip out and leaning, you know. And I always thought, he's just being rock star. But as soon as I put that Les Paul on, because it's got some weight to it, my weight shifted and my hips went up, and I was like, "Oh, you kind of have to stand like this with this guitar."
The whole process of recording that album was just a blast.
That really was.
To fast forward,
Sure.
Sort of after that, Stained Glass Eye.
Yeah, I formed a band called Stained Glass Eye with Dave Lieb and Frankie DeFreitas. We were mostly a trio. At some point, Bill Gunn started playing with us, but we had made some recordings, weren't happy with it, so we didn't release it. But we were playing a lot of shows, and that was going really well. But then, as things happened, I had to move on, and but at one point, I had like 13 songs that I had written that weren't really represented in my catalog, and so I just got those guys together, and with Bill Gunn, and we went into Bill Ryan's studio, where it's a big barn out in Sturbridge, and we pretty much played all 13 songs in one day. Like, wow. We only did like 1 or 2 takes of each song. We knew them,
Yeah.
And so I'm really happy about that, because now I have an album that, is Stained Glass Eye is represented. I called it Scott Damgaard just because at this point, just to kind of keep my catalog under the same artist name.
Right.
But I named the album title Through a Stained Glass Eye, so that it's there, it's part of the.
I said, I wonder what we like to be friends for one day. Getting you naked in that Minnetonka Bay. You could wear my purple coat on a cold, cold day. And if it snows, a raspberry beret. To keep my figure, I'd have to give up beer and get used to my daddy calling me queer. But my girl wouldn't complain, because in the sack, at least for one day, I'd be black.
But we did the drums at Ken Hickey's studio. Ken Hickey playing the drums, and mixed it at Bill Ryan's studio. And then I did the Through a Stained Glass Eye. And then I did Leaving Hyannis. I released that in 2015. And that's the album that I first really started to expand, like, I didn't limit myself to anything, Stained Glass Eye was the, 4 guys playing in the room. Boom, this is exactly what it would sound like if you saw that show. But Leaving Hyannis, I have some songs that have violin, some that have harmonica, some that have some horn sections, and basically I was kind of like thinking like a producer and being like, well, this song is about an Irish girl. Let's have a tin whistle on it, and a violin and an accordion. Let's make it Irish sounding.
Yeah.
This is a song about a woman from New Orleans, so let's give it more of a New Orleans bluesy kind of a production. Next song is kind of has a ska beat, so let's get like a Mighty Mighty Boss Tones kind of a sound happening with the horns, and I sort of like painted a different picture on each song. Now there's pros and cons to doing everything, and doing it that way. I think that's one of the criticisms I had on the album, was that it was a little too much of a mismatch. There wasn't a cohesiveness through the whole album,
Right.
from song to song. But to me, it's like if you listen to radio, it's the same thing. You get each song is a different.
Right, and that's how it ought to be.
And it's that Beatles influence. I mean, you listen to the Revolver. Revolver to me was like, might be my favorite album. The White Album,
Right.
I don't know, but Here, There, and Everywhere. Tomorrow.
And then Never Knows.
Tomorrow Never Knows.
Well,
So,
how diverse is that?
who would put those two on the same album?
That wouldn't happen now.
I'd do it.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Cool. We should play a song off the Hyannis
Sure.
CD. We should have a...
Second, one of the more popular songs on the album is called Nantucket Stroll.
Okay.
We made a music video for this one. It's on YouTube.
Okay.
Shot it over there in Nantucket. And this has a full horn. There's like 3 or 4 horn players on this song. Midnight's playing piano. It's a...
Leaving Hyannis on the fast ferry, passing the lighthouse and the Kennedys. We're out on the ocean, we're gonna get there soon. Dark and stormy, why not? It's afternoon. The man from Nantucket will meet us at the port in his navy blue blazer and salmon colored shorts. His lady beside him in her big floppy hat and her light ship basket. She really is all that. Cobblestone streets, people we meet out in the sun, having some fun. Shadow box shopping, people are stopping, taking their time, buying some wine. And me and my baby taking a Nantucket stroll. Me and my baby taking a Nantucket stroll. Our bed and breakfast, room on the 2nd floor. Chocolate chip pancakes, then off to Murray's store. Go out to the end house, out in Madaket. The view from the Widow's Walk is one we'll never forget. A walk on the beach, away from the streets, your hair in the wind, the fog rolling in, the waves are crashing, on the beach they're smashing, footprints in the sand, in this faraway land. And me and my baby taking a Nantucket stroll, me and my baby taking a Nantucket stroll. To Captain Toby's for a sing-along with Scott Damgaard. That dude knows every song. The Savage Brothers are at the chicken box. They're playing American Girl. Man, that band really rocks. Leaving Nantucket, though we don't wanna go. Back on the ferry with our luggage in tow, passing the jetties, a penny into the sea. Says we'll be back soon to see the gray lady and her cobblestone streets. The people we meet out in the sun, having some fun, shadow box shopping, people are stopping, taking their time, drinking some wine. Me and my baby taking a Nantucket stroll, me and my baby taking a Nantucket stroll, me and my baby taking a Nantucket stroll, me and my baby taking a Nantucket stroll.
My latest album, Hiding Out on Titan, is somewhere in the middle. Like it's mostly me and Ken, Dave, and Ben Knight playing keyboards on it. Well, Dave plays on about half of the 12 songs, but the three of us played on pretty much every song, and we laid down the basic tracks, playing together in the studio with the drums and the bass and the guitars and the piano going at the same time. But then I kind of took my experience from the Leaving Hyannis album, and then I overdubbed some things. So, like one song, we brought in a violin player or a cello player on a song, and just to just give it more color,
Right.
And there was 25 musicians on Leaving Hyannis, and
Oh,
I think there's like 8 or 9 on the new album.
Streamlined.
Yeah, 8 or 9 is streamlining it, right? I actually play a lot of the instruments on the new album. I played bass on, I don't know, at least 7 of the songs or something. I'm not really, like a bass player, but I can play enough bass. And, when you come up with songs, you come up with the parts. So I came up with the bass part. And there are some songs where Dave Lee came in and played bass. But he wasn't always available. And so just, took matters into my own hands, And some of them I thought, well, we'll get somebody else to come in and redo this bass part. But it was like perfectly fine, the bass part. So
Right.
the title, well, basically what happened was I was reading about the satellite called Cassini that NASA had sent out to Saturn to, observe Saturn and the moons of Saturn. And it had reached its end of its life, and they were gonna send it crashing into the surface of Saturn. And, get data as it descends in until it disintegrated. But it said in the article that it was 1 billion miles from Earth, and there's something poetic about 1 billion miles away. And I actually asked Siri, how far is Saturn from Earth? And it said about 1 billion miles, and I'm like, so there it is. And a couple things, I had read this book that my friend Sherry Kraft had lent to me by Kurt Vonnegut Jr. called Sirens of Titan, about these people that would go to Titan and back and forth between Earth and Titan. And nobody on Earth knew that these people were going to Titan. I don't know if they were Earthlings or aliens or whatever, but they were. I remember thinking, there's no way you could live out on Titan. That's impossible. But then when Cassini was exploring Saturn, they had analyzed Titan and said that it had, lakes and, it may not be water, but they said it had an atmosphere that was mostly methane.
Oh.
And I thought, well, probably can't breathe methane. But then I thought back to when I used to share a bedroom with my brother, and he released a lot of methane into the atmosphere. I thought, well, I can probably survive that. and there was one time when I was on a flight, and we ended up in a holding pattern, and for like 45 minutes, we were just in a going around in circles in the sky. And the pilot kept coming out. We're in a holding pattern, and somehow I came up with this line in my head about, I'm in a holding pattern around the rings of Saturn. But I was trying to put it into a song for years. But then when this came up about, Cassini and Titan and, is up at Saturn 1 billion miles, I thought, oh, I'm going to try this. So I wrote, I'm in a holding pattern around the rings of Saturn, and I just kept writing, and came up with the idea that I was hiding out on Titan, like, 1 billion miles from Earth. And part of it was kind of like, that maybe like nobody from Earth would know that you could be on Titan, so that's a great place to hide, But it kind of morphed into, that feeling when you're something, things are bothering you, and you just want to go hide from the world.
Yeah.
And it really turned into that, like, why am I out on Titan? Am I just part of some space program, or no? It's because I just had to get away. Instead of locking myself in my bedroom, or instead of going to the middle of Montana or something, I'm out on Titan. It's crazy, It's like science fiction, couldn't really happen. But in my mind, I think when you listen to the song, like, it rocks, and
Yeah.
and when you there's plenty of songs that are a little far-fetched, but they just rock, and you kind of get lost in it, and that's kind of where it is for me.
Is that the song that's queued up, or
Should be track 1.
let's get the title track.
I'm in a holding pattern around the rings of Saturn. I'm waiting for my moment when
3 songs on the album where there's piano and organ at the same time. It's like the band, or like Bruce Springsteen's band. They use that combination. When we played the CD release party last Saturday, we had both happening, and it's really cool. I just saw the Wallflowers, Jacob Dylan's band, and they got a great organ player in that band. And after that, it made me want to go and add the organ to the song on the album called One Skinner.
It's Friday night, the fire is lit, the wind's howling on the trail. He'll be coming in this evening with a million tales to tell. I pour a glass of whiskey, leave the bottle out for him. I hear the cackle of the crackle, and I'm sure he's coming in. And oh, One Skinner, the party's just begun. Oh, One Skinner, I'll roll another one. Roll another one.
Celebrate the album being done on last Saturday, February 9th. And that was awesome. Shared the bill with Hey Dave, some of the guys from Low Positive, and Visiting Wine. And yeah, man, it was a great release. I go through CD Baby for my albums. If you go to cdbaby.com, you can find, when you search Scott Damgaard, you can find my first 5 albums. I haven't put this one up there yet. It's just a couple more days and I'll be sending it to them. So, and once it's up at CD Baby, they distribute it digitally for me so that it's available on iTunes or Amazon Music or Spotify, others too.
But then in the meantime, you'll be out doing shows, and and then you can get all the information on your website and
That's right,
and Facebook.
ScottDamgaard.com, if you know how to spell Damgaard. SCOTTDAMGAARD.com. I got that double A in there. It confuses people sometimes. It's a Danish name. Okay, I'll play this one. When you listen to the record, there's some great playing on it. I hope you listen to the record, but this will be like an acoustic version, right? It's a true story. It was about this girl who's a scientist. She works for this company where they build robots. Janet brought a new machine home from the laboratory. I was shocked to see just how much it looked like me. While I was watching football, it was cooking her escargot. And then I walked into the kitchen. Little did I know she'd left me for a robot. She's got it by remote control. She left me for a robot. It doesn't even have a soul. Oh, it's a robot. And when it looks at me, its red eyes glow. She left me for a robot. But if it loves you, would you let me know? It started doing things for her that I couldn't do. It told her best jokes, read her books, it did her laundry too. It answered to her voice and it carried out her every command.
hand. It was reciting her poetry when I caught him holding hands. She left me for a robot. Am I living in the twilight zone? She left me for a robot. Whatever happened to flesh and bone? But it's a robot. It's just a hunk of metal Romeo. She left me for a robot. But if it loves you, would you let me know? But honey, is it ever gonna love you like I do? When you're gone and I miss you, does it feel those feelings too? And honey, when you die, will it shed a rusty tear from a robot eye? Ooh, she left me for a robot. This does not compute. She left me for a robot. I need to give that thing a big reboot. She left me for a robot. Honey, why'd you let me go? She left me for a robot. But if it loves you, would you let me know? Let me know.
Too funny.
I got a whole musical that I've got in my head that I want to write about this whole robot thing. Here's how the story goes. First, this guy, the guy that's dating Jenny, right? First, he loses his job to a robot, right? Gets replaced by a robot. So now he's unemployed. And he's home watching football. Jenny brings home a robot. And then he catches Jenny and the robot, getting a little more friendly than, so he loses his girl to a robot. And then he gets in this horrific accident and he loses his arms and his legs. But he gets bionic arms and legs. And so he becomes a robot. I got this whole scene planned out where the robot, that takes Jenny away, he's not the only robot that, this is kind of happening. And so society is getting mad at the robots, taking the jobs, taking the girls. Whoops. And, I got a whole scene where the robot is he's by himself on the stage, sitting on a chair, and he's all down. Why does everybody hate me? I'm a robot. I was built to be this way. This is what I'm supposed to do. I'm just doing what I'm supposed to do. So you kind of create a little empathy for the robot.
Right. Well, you have to have some empathy.
It's gonna be a show. It's gonna be great, man. It's gonna be on Broadway. You know what I really want to do is I want to make a music video for this song. She Left Me for a Robot with Atlas, the robot that Boston Dynamics created. If anybody knows anybody at Boston Dynamics that can hook me up, get permission to have, I'm just picturing Atlas walking up my steps, coming into my house and going in the kitchen and be great.
Very cool.
They made a robot dog at Boston Dynamics too. So the last scene of the music video, I want to have, I'm standing there watching Jenny and the robot walking hand in hand down the sidewalk, going for a walk with their robot dog. I actually went over to Boston Dynamic and I saw the scientists were up in the parking lot and they were testing the robot dog and it was running up and down the hill and obstacle course. So I walked over to him and I said, "Hi, I'm Scott." And they said, "First thing we have to tell you is you must leave the property now." So I didn't get very far.
Wow.
But I'm not giving up.
Too cool.
Yeah.
Well, Scott, thanks a lot.
Yeah, thank you.
for doing this. This was a blast.
It was awesome. Really good way to spend the afternoon, and hope a lot of people get the tune and
Yeah, exactly.
hang out with us.
Yeah, this is like the second of hope a million podcasts to come from the Boston Beat. Lenny Scolletta. This is Scott Damgaard, and we'll see you sometime soon. Take care.